welcome to our channel. Get ready to be moved by a story that begins at a brilliant gala and ends in a family reunion full of mysteries and overcoming. A billionaire lawyer discovers that a simple ring could be the clue to finding his sister who has been missing for years. This story is about love, resilience, and the bonds that unite us, even when everything seems lost. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our legacy stories. And tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? Let's share these heart-touching stories together. The charity gala at the Whitney Museum was an event filled with elegance and sophistication. Bright lights reflected off the glass walls as guests in formal attire mingled among the works of renowned artists. John Miller, a billionaire lawyer known for his charisma and generosity, was about to take the stage. He adjusted his tie, surveying the audience with a confident smile. "Good evening, everyone," John began, his voice echoing through the hall. "We're here tonight not only to celebrate art, but to make a difference in the lives of young people who, like many of us, deserve a chance. Their future begins with the support we can offer now." The audience applauded, but John felt he needed to go further. He wanted each person there to feel the urgency and importance of the cause. Every donation, every gesture matters. Think of the young people battling adversities, dreaming of a better life. Let's help them turn those dreams into reality. John's eyes sparkled as he spoke. He shared stories of young individuals he knew personally, those who, with a little support, managed to overcome barriers. It's not just a matter of charity, it's a matter of justice. We all deserve equal opportunities. He paused, allowing his words to resonate. After his inspiring speech, John stepped down from the stage, still buzzing from the presentation. The murmur of the crowd filled the air as he approached a group of friends and colleagues, exchanging smiles and greetings. That's when he noticed a small figure on the outskirts of the hall. A girl of about 10, with brown hair and a curious expression, was watching him intently. "Hi, Mr. Miller," she said timidly, moving closer. "Hello," John replied, crouching down to her level. "What's your name?" "Emily," the girl answered, her voice soft. "I just wanted to say that you spoke very beautifully up there. My mom always talks about how important it is to help people." John smiled, touched by the child's sincerity. "Do you think so too, Emily? That we should help others?" "Yes. I want to help the young people who need it," she said, her eyes shining. "But I also wanted to show you this." She raised her hand, presenting a silver ring that sparkled under the museum lights. "What a beautiful ring. Is it special to you?" John asked, admiring the piece. "Yes, it's from my mom," Emily replied, a bit more animated. "She told me it was a gift from someone very important." At that moment, John froze. The ring was identical to one he had given his sister Rachel many years ago. He recalled the day he presented it to her, on a sunny afternoon when they were still children. Time seemed to stand still for a moment, and John's heart raced. "You said your mom's name is Amanda," he asked, trying to control the emotion that threatened to surface. "Yes. Do you know her?" Emily looked at John with curiosity. I met your mom a long time ago," John said, his voice trembling. "Can you tell me more about her?" "Of course. She always says it's important to have courage and fight for our dreams," Emily commented, looking down. "She also talks a lot about her family, but I don't know anyone." The girl's words echoed in John's mind as he found himself enveloped in a mix of nostalgia and hope. He couldn't help but think of Rachel, and the unexpected connection forming between them was palpable. "You look a lot like her, you know?" John said, a sad smile on his lips. Emily smiled shyly, and in that small moment, something within John began to shift. He knew he needed to learn more about that girl and her mother, Amanda, and the connection that might exist between them. After the impactful speech at the charity gala, John Miller sat in a corner of the elegant hall of the Whitney Museum, his mind still processing what he had just experienced. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and lively conversations, but he felt distant, absorbed in thought. Emily's approach had been unexpected. The little girl, with her hopeful gaze and the shining ring that reminded him so much of his missing sister, ignited a deep desire to uncover more. On a whim, John decided he needed to understand the story of that girl and, most importantly, her mother, Amanda. He took out his phone and began doing some quick research on Amanda. trying to find any clue that would lead him to her. When he found an address in Boston, a sense of determination washed over him. The next day, John packed his bags and headed toward a city he had never visited before. Amanda's house was in a quiet neighborhood, far from the hustle and bustle of the city center. Upon arriving, John felt his heart race. The house, an old building, was surrounded by a small garden full of flowers. He hesitated before ringing the doorbell, but curiosity and the need for answers propelled him forward. After a few moments, Amanda appeared at the door, her expression a mix of surprise and a hesitant smile. "You are John, right?" she asked, looking at him expectantly. "Yes, it's me. I'm sorry for the unexpected visit, but I need to talk to you about Emily and about Rachel," John replied, feeling the weight of his words. Amanda invited him in. The space was simply but warmly decorated, and soon they were seated at the kitchen table. John explained how he met Emily and the connection he felt when he saw the ring. Amanda listened attentively, her expression shifting between sadness and understanding. "Rachel. She always was a fighter," Amanda began, her voice trembling. "She had to make tough choices to protect herself and those she loved. You need to understand that her leaving wasn't by choice but out of necessity. I've always looked for her," John replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "I never stopped thinking about her. I always wondered if there was something I could have done to help her." Amanda sighed, looking down at the ground. She distanced herself because she was in danger. The relationship she had, it was abusive. He threatened her. She had no choice but to disappear. And she did it to protect us. Amanda's words hit John like a punch in the gut. He remembered the nights he spent awake, imagining where Rachel might be and if she was safe. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" he asked, frustration evident in his voice. "Because I didn't want you to feel guilty. Rachel was trying to create a new life, and I supported her. But now, with Emily, maybe it's time to revisit the past," Amanda said, her expression softening. The conversation flowed naturally, and soon John found himself recounting stories from his childhood with Rachel, about the dreams she had and the plans they always shared. Amanda listened, and in her eyes, John saw a spark of hope. "I have some things that belong to Rachel," Amanda said, getting up to go to a shelf. She returned with a small, worn box. "Maybe this will help you understand better who she was." John opened the box and found photographs, letters, and small objects that belonged to his sister. One photograph, in particular, caught his attention. Rachel, smiling in a park, the sun shining on her face. He held the image for a moment, lost in memories. "She was always so full of life," he murmured, feeling a wave of nostalgia. "I miss her." "She misses you too, all of us," Amanda replied, her expression understanding. "And maybe, if you manage to find her, you can rebuild what was lost." The conversation left John with a newfound sense of purpose. He needed to find Rachel, not just to answer his own questions, but also to help Emily understand her roots. The past was complicated, but family connections were stronger than any pain. And so John's determination solidified as he prepared for the next phase of his search. John was in a state of deep reflection. The letter he had found was not just a piece of yellowed paper, but a portal to his sister Rachel's past. He sat at his desk, surrounded by documents and old photos, as he looked at the words she had written years ago. The handwriting was familiar, and each letter seemed to resonate with his dearest memories. He read aloud, as if trying to connect with Rachel through time. "Dear family," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer around. I know this may be difficult to understand, but I needed to do this for myself and for you. Things weren't going well, and I can't put you in danger." John's eyes filled with tears, and he felt the weight of guilt and sadness. How had he not realized the pain his sister was facing? "Why didn't you reach out to me, Rachel?" he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "I could have helped." After reading the letter, he decided he needed to understand more about Rachel's life and the reasons that led her to disappear. Remembering Amanda's words, he decided to go to the park in Chicago where Rachel used to spend her afternoons. It was a place filled with memories, where he and Rachel used to play as children. When he arrived at the park, sunlight filtered through the tree leaves, creating a serene yet nostalgic atmosphere. John walked slowly, observing every corner, trying to relive his childhood memories. He remembered Rachel running around, laughing, full of life. "What happened to you, sister?" he thought, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. He sat on a bench, lost in thought when a familiar voice interrupted his contemplation. "Are you okay, sir?" It was a girl, not much older than Emily, with a curious and gentle look. "Yes, I'm just remembering some things from the past," John replied, forcing a smile. "Do you come here often?" "Yes, I love this park." "My name is Mia." The girl smiled, her eyes sparkling with childhood curiosity. "And you? What are you remembering?" John hesitated for a moment but decided to share a little. "I used to come here with my sister. She was very special to me. I'm trying to find her." Mia tilted her head, seeming to understand the depth of his words. "You will find her. If she is so special, she will feel that you are looking for her," the girl said with surprising confidence. He smiled, touched by the wisdom of the child. "Thank you, Mia. That means a lot to me." After this encounter, John decided to go home, determined to learn more about his sister's dreams. Upon arriving, he remembered Emily and how she had mentioned having recurring dreams about Rachel. He picked up the phone and called Amanda, eager to know if she had more information about Emily's dreams. "Hi, Amanda. It's John," he said when she answered. "Hi, John. How are you?" Her voice was warm, but there was an underlying concern. "I'm okay, but I need your help. Emily mentioned that she has dreams about Rachel. Do you know anything about that?" "Actually, yes. She often talks about a woman who protects and guides her in her dreams. She always describes this woman as someone who loves her very much. Sometimes, she says the woman is just waiting for the right moment to return." "That's incredible," John commented, feeling a wave of hope. "Do you think these dreams could be a real connection to Rachel?" "I don't know, but it's possible. Children have a way of sensing things that adults can't perceive." "You should talk to Emily about it," Amanda suggested. "I'll do that." "Thank you, Amanda," John said, determined to delve deeper into the memories and dreams that connected his family. He felt that each step brought him closer to Rachel, and his connection with Emily made the journey even more meaningful. John Miller was lost in thought as he drove through the city. The glow of Boston's lights blurred past the car window, but his mind was far away, fixated on the image of the girl Emily and the mystery surrounding her. The ring he had seen on her hand was identical to the one he had given his sister Rachel many years ago. This inexplicable connection compelled him to investigate more about the girl's family. Upon arriving at Amanda's house, Emily's mother, John was met with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The home was simple, yet there was a welcoming air that made him feel at ease. Amanda, a woman with a penetrating gaze and a soft voice, led him to the living room, where a coffee table was adorned with old photographs. "Are you here because of Emily?" Amanda asked, breaking the silence. "Yes, I have some questions about her and about you as well." "It's about the family's history," John replied, hesitating. "I saw the ring she wears." Amanda furrowed her brow, watching him closely. "The ring? It's a family heirloom. It belonged to my mother, but she said it was from someone important." "From whom?" John asked, his heart racing. "Do you know its story?" "Actually, my mother never spoke much about it. She always said it was a symbol of protection, but to be honest, I don't know much more." Amanda hesitated before continuing. "One day, she mentioned a sister who disappeared. A sad story." John's anticipation grew. "Could you tell me more about that?" "Any photos, anything that might help me understand better." Amanda hesitated but soon stood up and went to a box in the corner of the room. With trembling hands, she pulled out some photos and documents. "Here, this is the only portrait I have of her," she said, handing the photograph to John. He studied the image of a smiling young woman. The face was familiar. There was an impressive resemblance to Rachel. "This is Rachel," he murmured, almost to himself. "Rachel?" Amanda repeated, confused. "Is that her name? My mother never said, but she always had a way of keeping us in the dark about certain things." John couldn't take his eyes off the photo. "Can you tell me more about what happened to her?" Amanda sighed, as if the weight of the memories was becoming unbearable. She had to disappear. It was a matter of survival. She was in an abusive relationship and decided she could no longer live in fear. I always thought she had found a way to rebuild her life. And that led her to assume a new identity, John inquired, his mind racing with ideas. Yes, Amanda confirmed. She did what she had to do. But you said you saw the ring with Emily. Does that mean she could be alive? Hope began to bloom in John's heart. I believe she is. And if we can uncover more about Rachel, maybe we can bring her back home. I can help you with that, Amanda said, her voice now more resolute. If you're determined to find Rachel, I'll be by your side. John's determination grew as they talked. Do you have any leads on where she might be? Actually, I have some old notes. My mother mentioned a few cities. Seattle, perhaps. She always talked about a quiet place where she could live in peace. Seattle, John repeated, mentally jotting everything down. That makes sense. We need to go there and see what we can find out. Amid the conversation, the connection between them began to strengthen, and they both felt they were about to become involved in something much larger than themselves. The search for Rachel had become a mission not only to find a lost sister, but to rebuild a family that had been shattered by fear and silence. John sat in a small cafe in Portland, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the gentle breeze that flowed through the open windows. The place, with its exposed brick walls and rustic wooden tables, emanated a sense of warmth. But at that moment, the cozy atmosphere couldn't ease the tension pulsing within him. He had finally found Rachel, his sister who had been missing for so many years, but he hesitated to break the silence. His heart raced, and he struggled against the avalanche of emotions overwhelming him. Rachel was sitting a few tables away, gazing out the window as if lost in thought. Her brown hair, now a bit shorter and streaked with silver, framed her face delicately. John watched her, remembering childhood moments, shared laughter, and promises to always protect each other. But time and circumstances had separated them, and he didn't know how to approach the woman now sitting before him, so familiar yet so strange. Finally, after a deep breath, John stood up and walked toward Rachel's table. He could feel her gaze turning toward him, and when their eyes met, a wave of recognition and emotion washed over both of them. Rachel hesitated, her expression a mixture of joy and caution. "John?" she murmured, almost as if trying to convince herself that he was really there. "Rachel," he replied, his voice momentarily faltering. "It's you." Rachel smiled, but there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes. "I can't believe you're here. After all this time." "I've been looking for you," John said, sitting down across from her, feeling the urgency to connect. "When I found Emily, everything changed. The ring she was wearing, it was the same as the one I gave you. I needed to know if you were okay." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I did what I thought was right," she began, her voice trembling. "I ran away and disappeared. It was the only way to protect myself and our family. But why didn't you reach out to me? I would have helped," John insisted, his frustration showing. "We were a team, remember?" "I was scared, John. Scared that you would get dragged into all of it. What I faced, it was something you couldn't understand. I wanted you to have a normal life, far away from all of this," Rachel explained, her voice shaking. "I didn't want you to feel guilty." "Guilty? I feel guilty for not finding you sooner," John replied, his tone rising. "I could have helped you. We could have faced this together." Rachel looked down, a mix of pain and relief on her face. I didn't know what to do. Things were complicated. I couldn't take the risk, not just for me, but for you too. And now, with Emily, I just wanted to protect her." "She is your daughter, Rachel," John said, softening his tone. "She needs you. We have to work together to give her the life she deserves." "You have no idea, John. The nightmares, the memories, everything is still so vivid for me. I just wanted Emily to have a normal life, away from any shadow of the past," Rachel replied, tears streaming down her face. "But you're here now. We can rebuild this. We can try to understand what happened and how we can move forward," John said, his determination growing. "I won't leave you alone this time." Silence settled between them as they both reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this moment. It was a small space, but filled with unspoken promises and renewed hopes. Rachel finally lifted her gaze, emotion overflowing in her heart. Do you really want to do this? Do you want to help me face the past? Yes, John affirmed, his voice steady. We're in this together, Rachel. We always have been. We'll find a way to make this work. For you, for Emily, for us. And so, in that modest cafe in Portland, amidst shy smiles and hopeful glances, the siblings began to dream together once more, determined to rebuild what they had lost and to confront the challenges still ahead. John sat at a table in the small cafe in Portland, the aroma of fresh coffee and homemade pastries filling the air. The soft afternoon light illuminated Rachel's face as she watched him with a mix of joy and caution. The reunion was filled with repressed emotions, and they both knew that the conversation that would follow would be crucial for recovering the bond they once shared. I don't even know where to start, John said, breaking the silence that had settled between them. His voice trembled slightly, revealing the vulnerability he felt. I feel like I let you slip through my fingers, Rachel. If I had done more, maybe you wouldn't have had to disappear. Rachel looked down, her hands clasped on the table. It was clear that his words touched her deeply. She took a deep breath before responding. John, you can't carry that guilt. I made my choices. Each one was a matter of survival. I didn't want you to get caught up in any of this. I wanted to protect you, like I always have. But you shouldn't have to do it alone, he insisted, his voice filled with emotion. If I had known what was going on, if I had seen the signs, I would have fought for you. Rachel raised her gaze, her eyes shining with sadness and determination. You had your life, John, and I was trapped in a nightmare. What I went through wasn't something you could just fix with a phone call or a visit. I needed to step back to stay alive, not just for me, but for you too. With every word, Rachel's story unfolded before him like a book he hadn't realized he needed to read. John felt his heart tighten as she shared her struggles, the choices she had to make, and the fears that haunted her. Rachel continued, her voice now stronger. Being forced to live under a new identity was painful. I didn't want to leave family, I didn't want to leave you, but it was the only way to ensure no one found me, that no one would hurt my life again. He listened intently, absorbing every word, allowing her pain to seep into his being. You were so full of dreams, Rach. I remember our talks about the future. You wanted to travel, help people. How did you manage to cope with all of this? John asked, his voice now a whisper. I survived. I did what I could. I had to work multiple jobs, always moving, trying to stay off the radar. Every day was a challenge, but I had to hold on to hope. And in the midst of it all, I dreamed of the day I could reunite with you. Hope is what kept me alive, even when it felt impossible. The weight of Rachel's words hung in the air. John felt a wave of empathy and sadness, but also a profound admiration for her strength. I didn't know you were going through all of this. The guilt I feel is immense. If I had been more present, maybe things would have been different, he said. His voice choked. Rachel smiled sadly, yet gently. It's not your fault. You've always been a wonderful brother, and I'm grateful for that. But you need to understand that life pushes us down paths we don't always choose. What matters is that we're here now. We can start to rebuild what was lost, if you're willing. John nodded, feeling a new determination grow within him. I'm willing. I'm here for you, for Emily, and for us. I want us to know that regardless of what happened, we are still family. Rachel smiled, a smile that lit up her face and brought a glimmer of hope to John's heart. There, in that cafe, as memories and past nightmares intertwined, they began to rediscover the connection they thought they had lost forever. As John and Rachel tried to rebuild their family ties, the emotional atmosphere was palpable. They were in a small park in Portland, where the leaves on the trees danced gently in the wind, and the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily watched them from a distance, her gaze shifting between the two, while a mix of feelings enveloped her. She was happy to see her mother and her uncle together, but at the same time, she felt torn. The connection that had been lost for so many years was resurfacing, and she didn't know how to fit into this new dynamic. It's good to see you smile like that, Rachel, John said, trying to break the ice. His voice was full of tenderness and concern. I never imagined we'd be here together again. Rachel smiled, but her gaze was distant. I didn't either. But life takes us down unexpected paths. She looked at Emily, who was still observing from afar. I just hope she's not confused by all of this. She's strong, Rachel, just like you've always been, John replied, his voice steady. I know this reunion is complicated, but we can do this together. Emily approached, interrupting the conversation. What are you guys talking about? Her curiosity was genuine, but there was a hint of insecurity in her voice. We were just talking about how good it is to be together again, John said, offering an encouraging smile. Do you want to join us? I just don't know how to handle all of this, Emily admitted, looking at her mother and uncle. It feels like I'm caught between two worlds. Rachel crouched down to be at her daughter's eye level. I understand, my love. I've been gone for so long, and you've had to deal with everything on your own. But I promise I'm here now. We'll get through this as a family. That's what I want, Emily replied, her expression softening. But what if I can't feel comfortable with you, Mom? What if I miss what I never had? It's normal to feel all of that, Emily. I don't expect you to forgive me instantly. I just want you to know that I'm here for you, to support you, no matter what happens, Rachel said, her voice filled with emotion. In that moment of vulnerability, the echo of hurried footsteps broke the tranquility of the park. John, sensing the shift in atmosphere, stood up and looked around. What was that? Concern settled in his gaze. I don't know, but it sounds like someone is coming our way, Rachel murmured, her protective instincts kicking in. Before they could react, a man appeared, his expression menacing. He approached quickly, and his intentions were clear. Rachel, did you think you could escape? His voice was cold and cutting, like the wind that was now blowing stronger. Who are you? John stood in front of Emily, adopting a protective stance. What do you want? This isn't your business, successful lawyer. Rachel, you know you shouldn't have come back. Now, you will pay for it. The man advanced, and a wave of panic surged through Emily's chest. Mom, what's happening? Emily cried, gripping Rachel's hand. Stay behind me, Emily, Rachel ordered, her maternal instinct kicking in. John, we need to get out of here. We're not going anywhere, the man said, a malicious grin spreading across his face. And you, Rachel, will regret coming back. John, feeling adrenaline surge through his veins, looked at Rachel. We can't let him take you. Not again. Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the man. You can't do this. I'm here to stay. I'm not afraid of you. The man smiled, but there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. You may be here, but I have something much more important. He glanced at Emily, and John's heart raced. And it's not going to end well for you, little girl. Don't touch her, John shouted, his voice echoing in the park. He braced himself to act, but the man was already moving. At that moment, Rachel realized that the only option was to confront him. If you want me, come at me. Leave my daughter out of this. She positioned herself in front of Emily, ready to defend her child at any cost. The tension hung in the air, and the fight for Emily's safety was about to begin. The atmosphere in the abandoned warehouse in Detroit was thick with tension. The peeling walls and debris-covered floor created a grim backdrop as the echoes of John and Rachel's footsteps reverberated through the empty space. They had followed leads that brought them to this location, a meeting point that reeked of danger. John's heart raced, and his mind was flooded with thoughts of Emily and what could happen if they didn't find her in time. We need to be careful, Rachel whispered, her gaze sharp on every moving shadow. He could be waiting for us. I know, John replied, his voice low and tense, but we can't hesitate. Emily needs us. With a nod, Rachel moved closer to a rusty door, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached for the doorknob. They had heard rumors about the kidnapper, a man tied to Rachel's past who wouldn't hesitate to do whatever it took to protect his secrets. Fear was present, but the determination to rescue Emily outweighed any hesitation. Be quick, John whispered, watching his sister's back. Let's do this together. Rachel took a deep breath and pushed the door open, which creaked as it swung wide. The dim sunlight filtered through a broken window, illuminating what appeared to be a small office. What they found there made their stomachs churn. Emily was tied to a chair, her face pale, but her eyes shone with a mix of fear and determination. The kidnapper, a menacing-looking man, stood next to her, holding a gun. "Don't come any closer," he shouted, turning to face John and Rachel, his expression filled with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Let her go," John demanded, his tone firm. "You don't have to do this." "I can't let her go. She knows too much." The kidnapper gestured nervously, as if he was about to explode. "Rachel, you left me no choice. You can't come back now." "I'm not yours anymore," Rachel replied, her voice steady and confident. "Emily has nothing to do with this. Let her go." The man hesitated for a moment, doubt crossing his face, but soon, rage took over again, and he pointed the gun at Rachel. "You don't understand. I can't let her go. You betrayed me." "If you really love me like you said, then do the right thing," Rachel pleaded, her gaze locked on the kidnapper's eyes. "Let my daughter go. She doesn't deserve this." As the tension mounted, John realized he needed to act. He moved slowly, trying to divert the kidnapper's attention. "Look, let's talk. It doesn't have to end like this. We can sort this out without violence." The kidnapper laughed, a laugh full of contempt. "You think you can negotiate with me? I know what you are. A rich lawyer who doesn't care about anything but money." "That's not true," John replied, his voice laden with emotion. "I care about my family, and I'm here for Emily. Please, don't do anything you'll regret." In that crucial moment, Rachel, realizing that the conversation was leading nowhere, decided to take action. With sudden courage, she stepped forward towards the kidnapper. "You can't hold me anymore. I'm not yours. If you really care about me, let Emily go." The kidnapper, taken by surprise by Rachel's audacity, hesitated. It was the moment John had been waiting for. With a quick movement, he lunged forward, grabbing the man's arm and diverting the gun to the side. The shot echoed through the warehouse, but thankfully, it didn't hit anyone. "Let's go, Rachel," John shouted, as he struggled to disarm the kidnapper. Rachel didn't hesitate, and with unexpected strength, she moved closer to Emily, freeing her from the ropes that bound her. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice trembling with concern. "Yes, Mommy," Emily replied, tears in her eyes. "I'm so glad you came." The struggle continued, but together, John and Rachel managed to overpower the kidnapper, and he fell to the ground, defeated. A heavy silence fell over the warehouse as they gathered in a tight embrace, relieved to have rescued Emily. The true value of life had become clear to John. Family and human connections were what really mattered. Emily was in a state of euphoria, her heart racing as she was enveloped in her mother Amanda's arms. The relief she felt was palpable, and tears of joy streamed down her face. John, for his part, watched the scene with a mix of gratitude and emotion. He never imagined that this day would come, a day when the scars of pain in the past would begin to heal. "I was so scared," Emily exclaimed, barely able to contain her emotion. "I thought I'd never see you again." Amanda hugged her daughter tightly, gently stroking her hair. "Never again, my love. I promise we're all together now. Nothing will separate us again." John, standing a few steps away, felt his heart warm at the sight of the bond between mother and daughter. He slowly approached, still processing the adrenaline from the recent battle he had just faced. The images of the kidnapping and the confrontation with the kidnapper were still fresh in his mind, but now, in front of that scene of love and reconciliation, everything felt lighter. "You were incredible, Rachel," he said, his voice choked with emotion as he joined them. "What you did, confronting that man, I don't know how to thank you." Rachel looked at John, her gaze reflecting a mix of relief and pride. "I just did what any mother would do." "Emily means everything to me. And you were essential. We couldn't have done it without you." The young girl stepped back a little and looked at the two, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for saving me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." John smiled, feeling that this experience had united them in a way he had never imagined. "The important thing is that we're together now, and nothing will separate us. Let's rebuild our family." Rachel nodded, her emotions close to the surface. "I'm willing to leave the past behind if you are too. I want to build a future where we can be happy." A silence hung between them for a moment, as each reflected on the journey they had been through. The tension and fear began to dissipate, giving way to new hope. "What do you think about going home?" Amanda suggested, looking at her daughter. We still have a lot to talk about, and I want to make your favorite dish." Emily smiled, the idea of returning home bringing a sense of normalcy that had been missing for so long. "I'd love that, but can we stop by the ice cream shop?" She looked at John, her little eyes sparkling. "Of course," John replied, laughing. "You deserve a giant ice cream after everything that has happened." As they walked together, a new connection was forming between them. John felt that life, which once seemed full of challenges, was now brimming with possibilities. With Rachel by his side and Emily in between them, he knew he was ready to face any obstacle. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and shared memories. They began discussing plans for the future, the idea of creating a home where Emily could have the childhood she deserved, away from fears and insecurities. "We can start a new tradition," Rachel suggested, glancing at her daughter. "How about a family dinner every week? That way, we'll always have a moment to gather and talk." Emily nodded enthusiastically. "That would be great, and we could even pick a different theme for each dinner. I'll think of some ideas." Rachel laughed, feeling rejuvenated by her daughter's energy. "I love that idea, and I'll volunteer to be the chef. We can cook dishes from different countries." John watched with a smile on his face. He had never felt so connected to anyone before. The thought of building something new, a new life, a new beginning, felt not only possible but inevitable. As they walked toward the ice cream parlor, the sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. It was as if the universe was celebrating the new phase about to begin. They were together, ready to face the future, and that was all that mattered. The atmosphere at the Whitney Museum was charged with emotion and anticipation. The bright lights reflected on the marble floor, and the guests, dressed in formal attire, murmured excitedly about Emily's recent rescue and the family's reconnection. John Miller stepped onto the stage with a smile, although his heart raced. He had a lot to share, and the bond he had regained with Rachel and Emily was the most important part of his new life. "Good evening, everyone," John began, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "Tonight, I'm here not just as a lawyer, but as an uncle who has found his family again." The audience fell silent, paying attention to every word. "The story I'm going to tell is about resilience, love, and second chances." He looked at Emily, who was sitting in the front row, her face illuminated by the soft light of the stage. She had a sparkle in her eyes, a mix of joy and nervousness. "This is my niece, Emily," and he continued, gesturing toward her. "She is an extraordinary young girl who has taught us the true meaning of courage. After facing situations no child should ever have to endure, she rose up with grace and strength." Applause echoed through the room, and Emily smiled shyly, feeling a bit embarrassed but extremely proud. John took a deep breath, preparing for the hardest part of his speech. "This story also involves my sister, Rachel Bao, who for many years was away from us. Rachel didn't disappear of her own volition. She did what she thought was necessary to protect herself and her daughter. A mother's love is powerful and can sometimes lead her to make tough decisions." At that moment, Rachel walked onto the stage. She looked radiant in her blue dress, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, John," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Talking about the past is difficult, but I need everyone to understand that every choice I made was out of love. I wanted to protect Emily while also shielding myself from a past that haunted me." The audience was completely captivated by the story, and the silence was palpable. John and Rachel exchanged a knowing glance, a silent understanding between two siblings who, after so many years of pain and separation, were finally together again.